Okay, so now I'm live. So we got 5 minutes wait before we start. And I guess that also helps me to get used to the idea of talking to myself more or less. I can say I got 4 of you already here. Thanks for coming in early. So we'll just wait and then we'll start at 10 o'clock. Yeah. So good morning, everyone. Early bets. Thing is, somebody who knows how to use these gizmos helped me set it up to start 5 minutes early. I guess she also figured that I'll be needing the time to settle into some sort of, I might like my own voice, but it takes getting used to when you sit in front of the device. And that's all the company you get before you start mouthing off. But thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Obrigado. I just felt like we've got the 2023 electoral cycle coming up, and everybody is busy mouthing off, and all kinds of characters are creeping out of the woodwork, promising even more ludicrous things than the current occupant of that evil rock called Asu. All right. I guess the worst we can do is sit down and talk to each other and try and make sense of the insanity that we live with. I was chatting with someone earlier on, I think that was earlier this morning, and I explained to the person that most of the time when you find yourself in a game that is rigged against you, more often than not, what you do is you try to hone your own skill and just do that much better in the hope that you beat them at their game. Or, you join them since you can't beat them. That's the one we do the most in Nigeria. But I'm of the opinion that there is a third way. Why not change the game? That sometimes comes across as being impossible, but it's doable. Part of what we'll be doing as we go through this week, which concludes on Sunday with a question and answer session. One of the things we'll be seeking to do is show that it's possible to actually change this game. We've got to reimagine the game. So it's 10 o'clock now, and we'll start now. My name is Dele Farotimi, like you don't know already. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate your time. I do not take it for granted. The popular thing is to say that talk is cheap, but I don't think so. Talk is not cheap. Talk is pretty important, depending on what you're talking about. Today, I want us to talk about Nigeria. Particularly, I want us to talk about a path out of where we are to freedom. I titled it fancifully, Nigeria, the path to freedom, or you could say the path to Nigerian freedom. But I have found that diagnosis is just as important as treatment, if not even more important. Because if you're treating the wrong disease, you will almost always end up killing the patient. So if I have asked the question, where are we? Because what I've done is that I've broken these into parts. So today we'll be talking about one, where are we? Second part of that would also be, how did we get here? And the third part speaks to the undesirability of our present realities. So, where are we? I have spent a lot of time talking about where we are. And a lot of you have heard me at various times describe our reality as insane. I have said all of this, and perhaps even at the time when I used to wear the dreadlocks and everything, it was easy for most of you to listen to it and absorb it and laugh about it because I did look like a madman. But I was merely mirroring my society. You are all mad. We're all mad. If we're not mad, we wouldn't live the way we're living. We wouldn't. We have to be crazy to live the way we're living. So, where are we? Let's talk about it. We are in a geographical space locked together, and this place is called Nigeria. For those of you who are fortunate to have escaped the physical space, you haven't escaped the mental space. You're still a Nigerian. Remember the Canadian minister, the Nigerian one? Yeah. He escaped the physical reality, but the spiritual and mental reality traveled all the way to Canada with him. So we're all in Nigeria. And what is Nigeria? A British possession thrown together, cobbled together of different ethnic nationalities that had always existed in this space and time, long before Queen Elizabeth's mother and father ever met themselves, where they existed. The Benin Kingdom was already known to the world since the 14th century. We were not discovered by the British. Different ethnic nationalities lived in this space. And before the British would leave, these different ethnic nationalities spoke to themselves. They negotiated, they discussed, they traded. Us trading took place, negotiations of all sorts. And particularly between 1953 and 1960, they came to the conclusion that those who wanted to stay within what the British had created, the Nigerian state, should be governed by the principle of federalism. And it should also be a parliamentary democracy. It is important that this point be reiterated. And the reason for seeking to reiterate this point is so that you would understand how the path to our freedom actually lies in our history. Those who forget where they are coming from rarely ever know where they are going, and that is the Nigerian experience. By 1960, the experiments that were carried out, the negotiations that were undertaken, had become encapsulated in what became known as the 1960 Independence Constitution. This Independence Constitution recognized three distinct governance centers within a federal state. These were the Eastern region, the Northern region, and the Western region. Was this a perfect arrangement? Most definitely not. It never was, and it still isn't. Human relationships are rarely ever perfect, but they negotiated the terms of their being together, and those terms were encapsulated in the 1960 Constitution. Before that Constitution was adopted, plebiscites were held, and there were certain parts of what was known as Nigeria that left. That is northern Cameroon. You might find the root of the Amazonian problems in that section of part of Nigeria to Cameroon, but it was done democratically. People elected not to be part of the Nigerian Federation. Western Nigeria could have opted not to be a part. There was no compulsion. Northern Nigeria could have opted not to be a part. There was no compulsion. And Eastern Nigeria could have also opted not to be a part. Absolutely no compulsion. So it was a function of people coming together at various levels, elected men and women, freely choosing how they wish to be governed. So the 1960 Constitution was the first attempt by Nigerians to set out the parameters for how their lives were to be ordered. By 1962, or even before then, part of the Willings Commission recommendations on the right of the minorities, there have been agitations by the minorities. And Chief Awolowo had actually taken the minorities to the conference in England, to the Lancaster House Conference, I believe, in 1953, which brought the issues of the minorities in Nigeria to the fore. And in deference to the rights of these minorities, a procedure was set in motion in the Western House of Assembly, and the Midwest region was created. But it wasn't created by fiat. It took a democratic process. A motion was passed in the Western House of Assembly by a 2/3 majority. Consequent on that motion being passed, a plebiscite was held in the part that was to become the Midwest region. Not only was the plebiscite held, an economic survey was carried out to determine the economic viability of the region that was being created out of the Western region. I make bold to say that the expectation, especially in the Western region, which was the smallest of the regions, was that another region would also come out of each of the other two, and Nigeria will end up with 6 regions within a federation. So the northern minorities were to have a region created for them, and the eastern minorities were also to be similarly given a region. As a function of this process, the Midwest region was created out of the Western region, and in its creation, a bill was taken before the Federal Parliament in Lagos, and it was passed again by a 2/3 majority. And then the 1963 Republican Constitution of Nigeria, which is the last expressed will of the Nigerian people, duly gazetted the creation of the Midwest region. So in creating one additional region by 1962-1963, constitutional amendments were undertaken and the people themselves were involved. So by 1963, Nigeria became a federation of 4 regions. And then the second part we're entering now. How did we get here? The coup of 1966, January 1966 to be exact. For those of you who are interested, there are ample opportunity to catch up on this history because I will only adumbrate because of time. But suffice to say that Kaduna Nzeogwu led a group of majors in January 1966 with the romantic idea of correcting all the many errors they perceived as existing within the Nigerian Federation. That coup failed. But it failed only after political leaders of northern Nigeria and the premier of the Western region had been killed. So, by 1966 again, in July, there was a counter-coup. It's called a counter-coup, but I call it a state hijack because that was the beginning of the restructuring of Nigeria unilaterally. Following the coup of July 1966, a pogrom started in the northern part of Nigeria, which eventually led to the uncivil war of 19 1966, perhaps until date, because I am not sure if that war has ever ended. Nigeria has been in a state of war since 1966, in one form or the other. Either you find the quiet acquiescence of the victims, offering some veneer of peace, but Nigeria has not known peace since the death of the First Republic. What has happened is that today, since 1966, without consultation with the Nigerian peoples, without any consultation of significance with the Nigerian people, Nigeria is today anything but a federation. If we must call it what it is, perhaps we'll call it a feudal fascist state. It exists with 36 feeding troughs called states. It has 774 local governments created by the federal government. States routinely appropriate the resources of the local governments. So in reality, Nigeria does not endure on 3 levels any longer. All you have are what are called states and the federal government. Today, Nigeria has a schizophrenic relationship with the truth, which is why when you speak of Nigeria, you hear true federalism, when what you are seeing is anything but true and certainly not federal. So the question to ask, which is the third part, how desirable are our current realities? Let me remind you, young Nigerians in their prime, men and women, routinely flee from Nigeria across the Atlantic. I have read accounts of those who have taken the Libyan route. And I know that routinely a woman who is going through that place buys condoms, buys contraceptives. She knows that she will be raped, sexually abused on her way out of her father's land or mother's land or whatever you want to call Nigeria. It is almost certain that she will be trafficked, sexually trafficked in Europe. The males are not spared the sodomization on their route out of this country, fleeing. I think Sheol did a fantastic job. It's no longer migration, it's escape. Fleeing. They are running away from this blessed land that has been destroyed by an evil system and an even more evil ruling class. What are they running from? Ask yourselves, exactly why are they running if there was any hope to be had in Nigeria? We're talking about those who are not being actively recruited, where the West, Canada, England, Britain particularly these days, since after Brexit, the US more selectively, they cherry pick the best brains in our country, young and old. They have special visas to take the best of us out. So it's not just a material extraction of value any longer. The best brains that are meant to develop the country have been taken. And it's the lower end of the rung, those the West do not consider of value. Those are the ones running through the Sahara, crossing the Mediterranean. Nigerians have been forced into prostitution. Go to CNN, Google it, Nigerians, right there, in Parc de Paris, €5 in the cold. But what choice do they have? That is what the system has done to the Nigerian, rendered him rendered us vagrants, despised all over the world. The system has weaponized ignorance to the point where I look around me today and I'm amazed that even after the disaster that is Buhari, people associated with the emergence of such an odious, evil human being are still busy asking to be elected in their own rights. I will not deal with persons because personnel changes will not save Nigeria. But it is critical that we begin to ask ourselves, how have we gotten to the point where every ladder of hope has been destroyed systematically? And it is easier to despair about our country than to hope. There is nothing desirable about where we are, and we all know these ourselves. But there is a paralysis, and this paralysis is essentially due to the fact that the average Nigerian looks to his choices, and he has come to believe that there's no way out. If you are not voting APC or PDP, you look to several good men and women who have offered themselves outside of these two stealing platforms. And you decide that, no, these ones have no chance, they stand no chance. Perhaps rightly so. But I do believe that there is a way out of our quagmire. Even when the system would deny us the space to educate ourselves and speak to the need for systemic change and makes it impossible to mobilize the streets, it has enabled an electoral process for the simple reason that it has to continue to pretend to be a democracy. This need to continue pretending to be a democracy has offered us a unique advantage. The advantage it has offered us is that we can think our way out of our mess. The intention is to have a 4-part series. One is to do what I have done, offer you context for how we got to where we are. We got here because the will of the people stopped mattering, and the will of the rulers became preeminent. The Nigerian state has become structured as an entity to preserve power and not to serve the people. If we're going to change anything, it will not be because we changed our rulers. It will be because we changed the system. I am convinced that we can use what we have to get what we desire. If we were a generation given to reading, diligent studies, I would again say go and read the imperatives of the Nigerian Revolution, but we're not. So, what I'm going to be doing through the next series of lectures would be to then deal with where do we need to be going. That's what we'll be talking about on Tuesday. Or is that Monday? No, that will be on Monday, I believe. We'll be dealing with where do we need to be going. Every system is encapsulated in constitutions. The 1999 Constitution encapsulates the Nigerian governance systems. Every system is designed for a purpose. The purpose of our current constitution is nothing but to institute feudal order in Nigeria. That is why the governors have become more or less emirs, and the houses of assembly, just the councils of elders for the emirs. The National Assembly, just a rubber stamp for the president, who is just more or less a sultan. So at the end of the day, you, who considers yourself citizens, are nothing but subjects. You can change the office holders. If you do not change the system will get them to conform. So we elect a vibrant young Nigerian, say, yeah, my delusion, Dele Farotimi, you make him president. Are you going to make him the senators? Is he going to be in the House of, is he going to be the one populating the House of Reps? What can one man do in the face of a systemic rot? We will deal with the question of how to use what we have to get what we want. I have deliberately broken these into 4 parts so that it doesn't get too cumbersome. Take it that today is intended to let you see how we got to where we are. Much as I might like the sound of my own voice, I believe I'm done for today. You would obviously have questions. Put them together. Send them in. We'll collate them. On Sunday the 5th, we'll be doing 2 hours. At least I'll be willing to give as much as 2 hours. I'll spend the first hour answering the questions, but I'll do tell you, if you might want to do this, calm down, take the 4-part series together first, and then submit your questions. I'll spend the first hour taking the questions that were submitted, and then the second hour, I'll open up the lines or whatever channels of communications we might have. Let's talk, let's argue, let's reason these out. It cannot be beyond our capacities as human beings to reason our way out of this mess. Our children, they deserve better than this. And history would ask you, what did you do?